Thank you for the introduction. My apologies, I don't speak Russian. So I hope English is okay for you. Louder? Yeah? This better? Okay. Well, welcome. Thank you very much for coming to this talk. I want to talk to you about blockchain, a little bit more about us later, but just to make sure that we are all on the same page about blockchain as a concept. I just want to ask, does anyone here own cryptocurrency? Okay, a few hands. Anyone own SNT, Status Network Token? Yeah, thank you. Oh, another one. Great, thank you. So, cryptocurrency is an application of blockchain. Oops, sorry. But I want to expand that basic definition of blockchain being cryptocurrency, or being equal to cryptocurrency a little bit, in saying that blockchain is basically a system for value exchange. So if I tell you, I'm going to get you a drink later, then you have my word. And that has value, I hope. Because if I don't come to you later and if I don't give you a drink, then I kind of broke that promise. So then what value is left? And also if, for example, you create an awesome interaction design pattern and you give me the right to use that, I would love to be able to count on being able to use that without being sued, for example. So having the rights to something also has a lot of value to me. And then talking about news and, let's say, fake news, to be more current, truth has value as well. If I create a news item, if I'm a journalist and I want to write a story and I collect all my facts, then documenting those as truth has value as well, because I would hope that nobody tampers with that and somehow changes the truth for me. And then obviously, cryptocurrency, assets, monetary assets, have value as well. So you could think of blockchain as a technological solution for basically anything that has value. So whether it's my word, or the rights to something, or the value of information, or cryptocurrency, all of that fits within this technological solution of blockchain. I'm trying to stay away from the remote because I tend to skip 10 slides whenever I use it. All right. So I work for a company called Status. And what Status tries to do is build a socio-economic network. So a network to use blockchain for value exchange. That sounds very, very ambitious and very abstract as well. So to make that a little bit more applied, what it looks like in practice is that we are trying to get people onto this socio-economic network, but we use a car to do that. And the car for us looks like a messaging application, one, let's say, similar to Telegram, or for the people that use cryptocurrency, similar to a wallet that you use to keep your cryptocurrency. And then another thing that it does, that this like practical application to get you onto this network does, is that it allows you to use decentralized applications. And those are basically apps that you would have on your iPhone or your Android phone, but they are in the backend built differently. Any information that's on there is actually decentralized and runs on blockchain. So not to be impolite, I'm Hester, and like I said, I work for Status. I'm a UX researcher there, so I try to help people understand what this whole blockchain and socioeconomic service is about, and still learning in doing so, to be fair. I got into this domain about 3 months ago, so fairly recently, and as the domain is moving so fast, I felt like there's a lot of things that already I have learned for myself that is worthwhile sharing with you, because I also see that the domain is moving so fast that within the next year we'll all be using these decentralized applications and hopefully be designing for these decentralized applications. So that's me. Passing on to my colleague here, André.
Hey guys. So yeah, I'm Andrei. Like a year and a half, I've been lucky to join this really exciting team called Status, and my role there is the design lead. So basically, I was the first designer there. This is how I got the role, and it's really exciting. And I wanted to share something with you, like what's the whole thing about? What's so different about it? Like the first thing I want to mention that we're building something. No, sorry, that's much louder. We're building something for the future. We're in the middle of this massive shift. So now it's kind of like Web 2.0, like centralized solutions, servers, big companies owning your data, owning pretty much everything you have, like and selling you to advertisers. And it's so good that we're moving to Web 3.0, which is like a decentralized web, which it had to be actually from the beginning. This is how it was made at the first place. But it's not here yet. So an interesting thing is that we kind of believe that this is going to be the future. We don't use it ourselves, but we are here to convince everybody this is going to be like the next big thing. And like since it's like something really different, it's really hard to design for it because, like, for example, when we onboard you on an app, we're not just telling you how to use the app, what are the functions, what are we offering, but we are onboarding you on this like exciting train to Web 3.0. We're here to explain all of the new things we have. So, for example, these are some screens from our onboarding. On the left, it's pretty obvious. It's just a cryptocurrency wallet, which is kind of like straightforward, I would say. And on the right, this is a screen. This is like a cover screen before you get to back up your seed phrase. So what's a seed phrase? In like the blockchain area, it's a series of words that you would use to restore your account. So, and it's kind of hard for people to like kind of get it because they're unfamiliar with it. And we thought it's a nice idea to explain that your data and funds belong to you. We can help get it back if you lose it. So basically we're telling you, like, go ahead and back up your seed phrase, write it down on a piece of paper because we can't help you. Like, for example, if you lose your password, you got used to that somebody will send it to you via email, but we can do that. So, and there was an interesting insight. We ran a test session with those screens, and there was one of the participants, when we asked him, like, how does he feel about this? He said that I feel offended, and he said that I feel like Status is not taking responsibility of my data, my funds. So he thought like we're just like leaving him alone, and yeah, not paying attention to his problems. But after we explained him, like, the whole thing about it is that we technically don't have any way to touch his funds, even if we'd be forced to, for example, by government. Like now what happens with Telegram, they're forced to give away the keys, and they have this technological ability to do this, but we don't. So even if we'll be forced by any government in the world, we can't do it. So this is why you are the one who's responsible of your own like funds and assets. And after we explained that to him, he said, now I feel really safe. Now I feel like, so it's the same person, the same exact concept, but it produced like really different results because we explained it in a different way. So it's kind of hard to design here because it's much about the explanations. So I'm passing the microphone back to Hester.
Thanks. Yeah, so we're saying we need to like basically onboard people not to an app, but to a new way of thinking, to a new internet. But then what is actually so different about that new internet that makes it difficult to explain? Oops. So three main factors that I think are very different that Andrei also mentioned. It's decentralized, so any information that is passed along over this internet is not in one place, it's not centralized, it's decentralized. Another thing that is very typical to blockchain is that everything is encrypted. There was a story in I don't remember in which paper it was. It was about T-Mobile, I believe in Austria, storing passwords, but then as plain text. That is something on blockchain would never happen because everything is encrypted. Then a third thing that is very typical is that information is anonymous. Now, there are public keys and transactions are public, but especially in the way Status is built, none of that can be traced back to you. an example here is that most messaging apps, like Telegram, like WhatsApp, will ask you for either your phone number or your email address to store that somewhere centrally, so that in case you lose your wallet, lose your phone or whatever, they can help you in getting that account back. Because we don't want anything to be identifiable or traceable back to you, we don't collect any of that information. So basically what makes it seem a lot more difficult, which is what makes it difficult to explain, is that we don't ask you for your existing identifiable information, but yet we create a key for you, and we create that key locally, so that you are the only one who actually has access to it. Now, choosing this example because it has so many implications in helping people understand that it is a new way of thinking. Companies do not have any access, control, or opportunity to help you whenever you lose something. That's very safe in one way, or very unsafe in one way, but at the same time, it also makes it such that that information can never be passed to any government or any advertiser, for that matter. So a few things. It's anonymous, it's secure, it's decentralized. It's also a new language. Any new technology comes with a new language and new concepts to understand. So zooming in here a little bit to seed phrase or backup phrase that André referred to. Also, even within the company, we've had maybe 4 different ways to describe the exact same thing, because it's a new language and we haven't defined it yet. And there's obviously other companies working in this space who are also still defining it. So in that sense, we're basically like collectively building a new language. So to move on to something a bit more practical, how do we deal with these differences? How do we design for something that at least we believe is the future, and we believe is also very different from what we're used to? So number one, that I would always support as a UX researcher, test everything. It's true for any product, but blockchain applications even more so because they are so new. There are few existing patterns that we can use as proven and tested from other companies or other applications. So anything that we design, we will need to test. Oops. And here's an example of what we've been testing, for example, how we help people understand when you onboard the app, that yes, it's a messaging application, but it's also a wallet and it's also a gateway to any decentralized app. So we're trying to understand here, how can we explain people that you're onboarding a new web, a new platform, and not just an app? Oops, skipping one. Another thing that we try to do that seems to help and is especially important at this stage is to study the technology. And that means that we have study groups, basically, where we have calls with developers to explain us how does the technology actually work. But we're also very much encouraged by our founder to take time to read up and to look into some recommended resources so that we deeply understand the limitations and the opportunities of the technology. This is interesting for designers because usually we don't really have that level of influence on the technology. I would doubt, and here's an assumption of mine, that anyone here has actually been able to influence the internet, the way we communicate to the internet. It's such a big topic that's predefined and has constraints that we work with. In this case, we actually have the opportunity to collaborate with the people building it. So another point for us that we're still trying to learn and do is to identify future users. There are no existing users, so what we have to go on is people who use applications that share the same principles, that are privacy oriented. So usually we look at people that use Telegram, for example, to understand what kind of language they are used to. Another point is we see competitors as allies because we are basically building this new language. Any decentralized application, whether it's very similar to ours or completely different, is an opportunity for us to create a common language. As soon as we all start to refer to decentralized applications as dApps, dApps will become the new norm. If we decide a backup phrase is called a recovery phrase, that becomes the new norm. So working with competitors is very important for us. Oh, yeah. Here's a bit of a fact. We've been in alpha for almost 2 years now, maybe more than 2 years, which is quite extraordinary because usually we tend to push for, build and learn and get it out there so that we can get feedback. We are doing that, but we've been doing that within a closed community, so you sign up to actively test the app. Oops. Then another direction to move forward for us is to look at usage data. And we're extremely careful with how we do that because we also want to practice what we preach. If we say we are decentralized and secure and at the same time open and transparent, we want to do the same thing with data. So we try to look at usage data, but we collect it in the most conscious way we can. And for example, here, moving back to a discussion we were having 2 days ago, I just wanted you to take, even though we are on a timeline here, I want you to take 5 seconds and look at this screen. And then by show of hands, tell me if you would consider this a dark pattern. It is. I'm very happy to get some feedback here because I was surprised. This is a default pattern that Apple uses. And we basically copied that thinking like, that's fine. If Apple does it, we can do that. But again, the space is so different and the principles behind it are so different that, yeah, in this context, it is. Okay. With the time we have, moving back to André, who can tell you more about how we work. Because like I mentioned, we want to practice what we preach. So we do want to share a little bit about how we do that. With a new internet, new communication technology, we feel that a new way of working is also appropriate.
Hey, thanks. So yeah, we're not only building a decentralized app, we're also a decentralized team. Like working with Hester, who lives in the Netherlands, and now we're here together in St. Petersburg is a nice example of that. Our team currently consists of 70 people spread all around the world, all in different time zones. And we don't have an office, and we don't need one actually because it's against our values. We really value diversity, we value decentralization, and like lack of hierarchy. So one interesting thing I wanted to I'm gonna tell how we structure our work. So one interesting concept is swarms. So like I mentioned, we have 70 people, and how do we kind of like work together? Swarms are basically small groups of people, usually consist of like 7 people. Usually it's like few developers, 1 QA engineer, 1 or 2 designers, and they're focused on a certain function or an issue or a feature. And anybody can start a swarm. For example, when we kind of like realized that onboarding is pretty important, we started a swarm called onboarding. Led by the design team. We gathered some developers who are willing to help us. We specify like the summary of what are we building, like an onboarding for the app. Each swarm has a start and a final phase. Each swarm has a success criteria metric. Each swarm has an exit criteria. So all swarms they live in GitHub because we are not only decentralized, but we are fully transparent and public. So anybody can go on our GitHub page and see what we're working on. So for example, these are some swarms that are currently in progress. Like somebody's, like onboarding is one of the examples. Somebody's working on extensions, somebody's working on message ordering. These are all just text files where the swarm summaries are specified, so you can feel free to go and check that out. What else is interesting, that we are since we're so transparent, we kind of report to our community, and once in 2 weeks we have those town halls where all swarm leads tell what are they working on, are there any problems, what are they planning to work in the future. Usually swarms have sort of iterations, and iterations sync up with those town hall meetings. So usually town halls are once in 2 weeks. So once in 2 weeks we all get together. on a video call. It's all streamed to YouTube, and we transparently report to everybody what are we doing and what are we planning to do. So also, this is all like public. We'll share the presentation, sorry about the long link. But how are we dealing with all that chaos? Like I said, like anybody can create a swarm. Anybody can start working on whatever they want to, basically. But we need some structure for that so that we can move forward. And this is why we use this thing called OKRs. It stands for Objectives and Key Results. This is a methodology originally used by Google back in the day. It's the way of bringing structure to what we do. So, sorry. For example, like the core team has its own set of objectives. This is one of them, like messaging is reliable. Usually it's something ambitious, abstract, like what do we want to achieve? Like we want messaging to be reliable. And there's a series of key results. For messaging is reliable, how we measure that, one of the key results would be send delivered ratio is more than 99%. So usually there's like 5 key results tied to a certain objective. And now I outlined only one of them just as an example. And there's like high level OKRs, and they all kind of go down to team OKRs. So here, for example, the design team objective is derived from the core team objective. And we call it like good messaging experience because we're more focused on the user, more focused on the UX. And how were we measuring that is one of the examples is like 50% of users think that the experience is as good as in other apps by like asking them, running a survey or something. One more thing that we have is this thing called status open bounty. So like I said, there's like 70 people on the team, but these are only core contributors. We tend to bring the community in, so basically anybody can participate in the development because it's open source, decentralized, and we built a tool that helps you add a cryptocurrency reward for your GitHub issue. So for example, if you're an organization and you're building something open source and you have some things to fix, for example, you can, using status open bounty tool, you can add a cryptocurrency reward, which will automatically go to the person who submitted a pull request that has been approved. And we use it ourselves. So yeah, now I'm back to Hester.
You can go on actually as well. So as said, we have Status Open Bounty. It's a platform through which you can contribute. We are not employees, we're core contributors. That's how we see ourselves, but the community can contribute as a whole. We hope to have some design bounties up on Monday as well. So this is where you can go to see if there's anything that might be interesting for you to work on, so that you can also get a feel for what this whole blockchain domain is about and how it might be different to design for. That's it.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Поскольку